What's up, everybody? My name is Richard Terrell. I go by Kirby Kid, and you are watching DO Live, and I am eating orange sherbet. This is a daily stream show in which we talk about game design, and the topics vary day to day. Sometimes I take some topics from the Discord channel, which you are welcome to join, and I discuss them here with video or live examples. Today's a little bit different. I'm going to talk about this article that I read and just kind of talk about how it relates to the game that I'm working on, the game that I designed. It's called Enlighten. I've mentioned it a few times on this show, and I've made a few videos about it, so you can check those out if you're really curious, or you can play it because the beta is open. But essentially, my game's about learning and learning how to learn. And I came across this article, my brother gave it to me, and it says a universal way to solve problems from a mathematical genius. It talks a little bit about this guy, Claude Shannon, and a little bit of his history, you know, math genius, something like that. But there's a couple of interesting paragraphs and quotes that I plucked out of here that I kind of want to reflect on. Where is it? Shannon's reasoning. Where is it? So his general approach to addressing problems and solving problems and thinking math like a mathematician. Other people scrutinized a little bit because they didn't think he was rigorous as he could be in the steps that he was taking to build a coherent picture. But essentially, the importance of getting to an answer is pretty important for a lot of the things we do, right? Like, we want to know the answer to our mysteries and our questions. And I think a lot of times people are way too focused on the answer and on the process. So this article is talking about how important it is to ask a question in such a way that an answer is actually available to us. So, like, general approaches to problem solving and pursuing answers that is just a little bit more robust, a little bit more comprehensive. So this article mentions the dangers of detail and jumping from one detail to another, and kind of when you're doing it the normal way, you just kind of hope all the details eventually connect. And there's a different way to do it, is where you focus your energy on developing an intuition to what it is we are working with, or what's really going on under the scene. What is the core dynamic, or the core element, or the common thread that you can kind of extract and use that to better guide your problem solving process. So where's the first paragraph I want to quote? Shannon's reasoning right here. Shannon's reasoning, however, was that it isn't until you eliminate the inessential from the problem you are working on that you can see the core that will guide you to the answer. And this general approach, I think I relate to a lot. I find it very familiar. It's a lot of what I've done on my own blog and throughout the years. I've talked to a lot of people about, like, what the real issue is under all this. Like, when you ignore all the lexicon and the fluff and the language and the arguments and all that, when you can clarify and see patterns from the core examples that share commonality, then, like, what's really there under the surface, right? What is a simple explanation that could be causing all these various sort of examples or symptoms or cases, and how does that help us understand what's really going on? So I talk about focusing on the core all the time, and sometimes when I talk to people, I zoom straight into what I consider to be the core, and they're just still out there in detail land, and it can seem kind of it can make for a rough conversation when I'm really trying to get at the one thing that I feel like is underpinning everything, and they're still focusing on the details that they're sort of tracking on the very outer fringe of things. That's neither here nor there. We'll continue reading. When you get to such a core, you may not even recognize the problem anymore, which illustrates how important it is to get the bigger picture right before you go crashing after the details. Otherwise, you will start pointing yourself in the wrong direction. You know, I think a lot of times when I critique the way other people do games criticism, or the way they talk and think in general, there's commonly this pitfall that I notice where people keep focusing on these details, right? And they may have an example in mind or a personal experience, and they keep going, but this personal experience, but I think of it like this, you know, like, yes, okay, you know, that personal experience or that thought that you have may be an example that fits somewhere in this grand, flexible answer that we're searching for. And the having a better answer involves being able to articulate that spectrum and placing individual cases exactly where they fit best. So sometimes you got to let go of the example you have, the feelings you have, what you think, in order to sort of gain that perspective. And that's kind of what this paragraph is saying right here. When you take such a different approach to finding what the core problem is, that it may require such a broad sort of view and a sort of indirect way to contextualize what's happening, that it may seem like you're not even going directly at the problem anymore. You're just kind of doing all these other things that seem beside the point. Details are important and useful. Many details are actually disproportionately important and useful relative to their representation, but there are equally as many details that are useless, right? So not all details are made the same. Not all details are the crux of your argument or important to get at the core of whatever it is you are problem solving about. If you do not find the core of a problem, you start off with all the wrong details, which is then going to encourage you to add many more of the wrong kind of details until you're stuck. This is kind of an interesting thing to keep in mind. So if you start off in the wrong place, your natural process of taking in details and information and working with it is going to continue to move you further and further in the wrong direction, which is another reason why starting off well is such an important thing. I think you see this a lot in conversations where people don't have good definitions, or they're not being very clear and careful with their language. They'll often say something. You'll say, that doesn't make any sense. And then they'll try to explain it using more words that aren't used very precisely or accurately or clearly. And that's just like digging a deeper hole. And then if you try to untangle that and slow them down, then they'll use the same sort of, using the same problem over and over to try to reach a solution, and it's just going to get worse. So this is what this paragraph reminds me of, especially when talking about games. This happens a lot. And in Enlighten, which is the game I'm making, maybe I could show you. And my computer processor is already like going crazy, so maybe I cannot show you. But let me close down this. Yeah, my game is about learning. And one of the things I think that's helpful to help people understand how they learn is to let them get stuck. So it's a puzzle game with increasingly difficult challenges. So somewhere along the line of those challenges, you are going to get stuck and you're not going to be able to come to the answer in any timely fashion. And you're going to be, you're going to get to a point where there's no amount of like continuing to work at it that is going to sort of get you over that hump in any reasonable amount of time. I think that's really important for helping people and kind of force people to get a better, clearer idea of what's going on in their head and their learning process. So this says, start by pruning away what is unimportant and how you discipline yourself to see behind the fog created by the inessential. That's what you'll find the foundation you're looking for. That's when you'll find the foundation you're looking for. This general step right here is something that I encourage when I tell people to start by finding a whole bunch of examples and trying to organize those examples in really clear groups or relationships. You do that first so that you can sort of get a really good intuition or a really good idea about what is unimportant. So a lot of times, if you're talking about game design or an example from game design, you're like, yeah, well, if you're talking about this, like balance, or you're talking about feedback or some other higher level thing like level design or whatever, let's take a look at this. Yeah, if you're talking about some of these high level things like design space, concepts like interplay, balance, variation, describing the design space and all that, or whether you're talking about level design or something like feedback, or what is this one? Modes and features. These are all sort of higher level things, elements of game design that take a lot of these lower level components and combine them in really interesting ways, or considers them in really complex ways. So if you're talking about some of this high level stuff, it's already going to be packed with a lot of details. So it's just a really good exercise when you're trying to talk about game design to try to isolate and try to recognize what's unimportant and focus on exactly what you really want to talk about or exactly what you think is the problem. So like any one of these little prongs can be a discussion point, and any one of these prongs, any one of these pieces can have an effect on the entire game experience or how people feel about certain things or how they experience a level or what their takeaway is or whatever. So being able to drill down like this is super important. Being able to know what the limitations are, the differences between this and this, right? Between a pinch input for a touch device and a double tap, or a slide or a swipe, like what the difference is and which games do it and which games don't, and what are the pros and cons. Like this level of specificity is pretty important for helping you trim away what's not important. And finding the truth for the problem is almost as important as the answer that comes after it. Here's another interesting thing the article says. Frequently, when we have spent a lot of time thinking about a problem, we create a tunnel vision that is rigidly directs us along a singular path. Logical thinking starts at one point and makes a reasoned connections, and if done well, it always leads us to the same place every time. This I found very curious. And before we move on, I'll say that my game, Enlighten, it has a built-in metrics for testing your mastery of the game. And the way I define mastery is in 5 different sort of major categories. One is just your memorized knowledge, like what you actually have memorized in your head. Another one's your experience, the volume and range of different experiences you had in and sort of around this activity, task, or subject. Another one is your heuristical learning, a collection of all your tips and tricks and observations-ish. That goes there. Another one is your logarithmic learning, which is your... it has 6 points, which is your step-by-step sort of method for getting from one point to another, or getting the task done or solving something. Usually your logarithmic methodologies are much fewer in number than your heuristical tips and observations, so that's kind of a thing. But the last and most interesting, I think, topic for defining what mastery is what I call the cardinality of your cardinality of your knowledge, or cardinality of your learning. And it kind of piggybacks off those common phrases of learning something, up, down, in and out, forwards and backwards. Up and down involves, I'll show you guys. Up and down involves something that is best illustrated from this website from Worry Dream. It's called Climbing Up and Down the Ladder of Abstraction. And this website does a really great job of explaining what that is, and even these examples are interactive, so you can kind of play and have fun and do random stuff like this. But you climb up and down the ladder of abstraction, and it's kind of like the process of building representative examples and models for data, and then using those models to help you gain insights, and then making models off of those models, or making even more complex models, and then even more complex models, and how at each level of abstraction, so this represents the car on the road right here, but it looks like a crazy red and black graph. But each level of abstraction you go up, there are pros and cons, there are insights that you can see easier, and then elements of the simulation that is not so easy to see. So there's a great skill in being able to both create these abstractions and to climb up and down to find really interesting insights and observations and cases to pinpoint. That's basically what the up and down is. Learning something in and out essentially just means understanding it in a way that's highly specific and highly requires sort of a lot of specific knowledge, specific language, and lexicon and all that. The in group, the most sort of insular, inside baseball kind of way to understand and communicate it, that's the in. And then out is being able to communicate that to people who aren't in that group, outsiders, passersby, common people, whatever. So that's definitely a valuable skill. It takes a true, deep and flexible understanding of the subject in order to be able to do that. But the last one in this cardinality, up, down, in and out, forwards and backwards, is the last one. And the way that I described it before is that when you're learning like the alphabet, for example, most people learn the alphabet from A to Z, and they only learn it in one direction, and that's, like a linear song or anything else, like a story, start to finish. That's definitely a learning method that has directionality to it, right? You learn it in one direction. So learning the alphabet backwards is something most people don't do. But learning something forward and backwards is more than just like learning it one way and then learning it in reverse. It's learning it in a way to where your access to the information is basically non-linear. You can just jump into the middle of the song and start going forward. You can jump in the middle of the song and go backwards. You can go hopping around or whatever, and you don't get lost, and the data is all very well organized and straight in your mind. That's definitely an interesting and important skill for mastery. But the other thing is, how does that concept apply to tasks and subjects that don't have any kind of inherent linear approach to learning it or understanding it or experiencing it, right? That's where this really cool paragraph comes into mind, and I've sort of expanded what I considered to encompass learning something forward and backwards. It says, I thought it was really curious right here. So if thinking about something logically is in essence has like a vector, it has like directionality to it, where you start from your given or your initial conditions, and then you through a series of logical steps walk your way all the way down to the conclusion. Well, that has a direction, right? Causality and logic, one thing triggers another, one thing follows from another, and that kind of has a very predictable and expected direction built into it. So even though what you're talking about may not be like a story or a song with lyrics, something that to be experienced at the start and moving forward in the timeline, applying a rational thinking or a problem-solving process in itself has its own kind of directionality. So learning something forwards and backwards that isn't inherently temporal or linear probably involves creative thinking, which is a little different. You make connections, but these connections are less logical, more serendipitous, allowing for what we think to be as new thinking patterns, right? So just instead of going the same direction that everyone else is and deriving the same conclusions in the same way, you go in different directions, and you go in multiple directions, and that really is an approach that is in direct contrast to what you might expect from a very predictable, rigid, and linear, rational thinking process. So the rest of the article talks about go-to tricks for restructuring and contrasting a problem. You can exaggerate it, you can minimize it, you can change the words of how it's stated, you can reframe the angle from where it is looked at and reinvent it, right? As far as Enlighten goes, the game includes many tools to help you sort of, offload some of the mental calculations and stress your mind may be doing, and just help your brain as much as possible have the space and the freedom to be sort of self-aware and metacognitively. So if I take away some of the stress of solving the puzzle by keeping track of where you clicked, then your brain may have a little bit more power just to sort of observe yourself and what that means for your entire learning process. As far as tricks to break up what would otherwise be a very sort of rigid linear approach to learning something, my game has all kinds of modes and features to help you do that. Playing blind or with your eyes closed pretty much, randomized challenges and other things to help you stretch your mind. And there's this point. The point of this exercise is to simply get a more holistic look at what is actually going on, instead of necessarily just going in the same expected pattern, right? So when most people play puzzle games, they'll just start and they'll play it, and they'll clickety clickety click click until they get stuck, and then they'll probably quit. But the method in which they go about solving it is so direct. Like, how do I solve this? What do I do to solve this? And slowly work out the necessary steps in order to get closer and closer to the solution. But this different approach to learning is more holistic. So you're not just concerned about the exact steps to get the solution. You're concerned with the steps in between, the steps that could have possibly went in, branched and explored in different directions, and all these other possibilities. So it's easy for our brain to get stuck in mental loops. So the best way to break out these mental loops is to change the reference point. We're not changing our intuitive understanding of the problem or the core, just how it's expressed. So in another sort of interesting note, it's interesting to note that the information and the subject matter is consistent when you're applying some of these different learning methodologies. You're not changing what you know, and you're not changing the importance of coming to an answer or a solid conclusion, but the approach to doing so can yield a whole bunch of benefits if you just sort of take this more holistic approach, right? So, for example, what is the best way to solve this? You might ask yourself that question, but you could also ask, what is the worst way to solve this? Each of these questions contains knowledge, and you should dissect both. Just as a problem has many forms, it also has many shapes, and different shapes hold different truths, right? So you don't need to always look at something the same way, even though, for a simple example, digital artists oftentimes draw using their computer. And one of the cool techniques they have for helping them understand what their composition is doing is to mirror flip like that the image. And when they do, that helps sort of refresh their eyes, and their eyes will catch different line weights and different things in different ways just because it's a mirror image. And if you had been training yourself to look at your own artwork in a certain flow, and when you flip it, it breaks it, and that contrast is super important. Even if you never intend to ship that picture in the mirrored style, just having that alternate way of expressing what you're working on can give you interesting insights in your holistic approach to understanding the many forms and shapes of what you're working on, right? So this article is just like a neat little treat in that sense. I'm gonna try to find a Twitter video. Digital artists know. Oh, can I find it? Because it was a really funny video that illustrates that flipping pictures thing. So let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so it's pretty cool that a lot of what I read and a lot of what I stumble across in terms of these really sort of effective and alternative and interesting ways to approach learning, how much they synergize and line up with the work that I've been doing. That's cool. I'm just trying to collect a lot more data and a lot more research. Where is that funny picture? I think I've gone way too far back in my timeline. I'll never find it. Maybe I should have looked for it. Or search for it. Let's try this. Matching. Nope, it's gone forever. So, that's pretty much some of the things that I've been reflecting on in terms of learning. I'm just going to play a little bit of Castlevania. Oops. Hey, Fernando Z, what's up?
Hey, just dropping by, see what you're up to. I see you're streaming.
Yeah, I just talked about some interesting learning things from that article. And then I just kind of wrapped that up, and now I'm playing some Castlevania, so you can chat about whatever you want.
Okay. I'm almost caught up on your stream. I'm about to start Owlboy and the Flattened Adventures.
Oh.
Did you... Yeah, I got sick. I got food poisoning, so I've been... The one good thing about food poisoning, I have more time, and I watched like 10 of your streams.
Oh, wow. I hope you're feeling better now.
No, yeah, I'm starting to feel better. I should be back to normal by tomorrow.
I don't know if I've ever had food poisoning, but they say it's really painful and bad.
Oh, I've had it several times.
Yeah.
It can be really bad. It can be really bad.
I remember your story now.
Yeah. This time is not that bad. It's pretty mild. But so, did you give some? I finished the Iconoclast series of streams. Did you ever have like your final thoughts on the thing? The last thing I remember you said was that it felt very one note, and didn't seem to change very much over the course of 3 hours you played.
Yeah, I didn't. I played a little Owlboy after that and made some comparisons. It'll probably be a game that a while from now I'll just be like, well, I got nothing to do, so I'll just pop it open and see if I can get a little farther. You stupid bat. So it'll probably be something like that. So I'll reserve some of that final thoughts for when that happens.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that. I also got my my Splatoon problem fixed.
Oh yeah, you got your good copy.
I got the American copy for $3. I swapped the Japanese one and paid $3 difference.
Oh, difference,
so,
cool.
Yeah, and I had my brother-in-law play it, and he really liked it, and I played it. I really liked it. So
cool. Welcome to the
really
Cool
liked,
Kids Club.
Yeah, I really liked watching your streams about it. That really made me want to get it. But you know, it's always different when you actually play it yourself.
Yeah, you're like, why doesn't this look as cool? You're like, I don't know, man.
I'm really bad though. I'm really bad. I played online one time with the Japanese version, and I don't know. When you play, it seems so effortless, but when I played, I was horrible. I felt like people feel a little bit how people feel when they play HunterNet for the first time, because I really sucked. And I play a lot of shooters. But there's enough different about it. And the other thing is, I'm not used to playing on a gamepad. So I wasn't so used. I think that's probably the number one thing: the controls, and then just getting used to the ink and you know, it's a very short range shooter, and the ink plays such a strong role. So even though it is a shooter, and all these shooters have all these common elements, there's a lot. It's not as easy as going from like Overwatch to Paladin or Call of Duty to Battlefield. You know, there's a lot more. Part of it. That's part of why I like it so much, because it's got so many. It's got such a strong, unique core to it, and it's definitely not a MOBA.
Oh man! No, Medusa head. No.
I'm watching the video, but it's delayed. So.
Yeah, I'm Medusa.
Oh, there it is. There's the Medusa head with the nice sine wave. I also played ARMS, the ARMS demo.
Mm-hmm.
And man, we had a lot of fun playing that, and competitively with my brother-in-law. And I've also played Pokken, the demo. Have you played Pokken?
For like a few minutes. I was just talking about Pokken the other day. How no! How unique it is as a fighter, which also makes it hard for me to understand it. But I enjoy watching the tournaments and all that.
Yeah, we had fun with it. It was easier for us to get into it since it was a little bit more like a traditional fighter than ARMS. But once we got into ARMS more and started understanding its nuances, we actually had more fun playing it. Because we felt the good thing about ARMS is I felt like what we knew better, whereas with Pokken, I had a hard time knowing. I think it has maybe because it's an anime kind of fighter, but like without him really taking the time to study it, and we could. A lot of moves would like zoom you in, they rush you towards the character. It was a lot less clear.
It's a lot more complexity there.
Yeah.
Get away from me! What are you doing?
But I was thinking about, what games should I buy? Prioritize in what order, and I thought, well, Pokken seems cool and all, but I'm definitely gonna get Smash Brothers, and once I get Smash Brothers, I probably won't be putting that much time into Pokken, so it doesn't make sense for me to buy it.
Yeah, I kind of want to just play around with Pokken as a like just in the training mode, just to better understand it. But yeah, I'm not gonna buy a whole game for that, and I didn't even put a lot of time into the demo, so I was like, well, I guess that's it for me.
I did watch some videos after. With the demo gives you 15 credits, and we had a little tournament. I lost the first 7 matches in a row. Then I went. We didn't go through the tutorial. Then I went to the tutorial, and then I won 4 matches in a row, and then I lost. But I watched. There's a whole series of videos that somebody did on Pokken online that explains things in a lot more detail. But there's a lot of unique elements to it, and the whole field versus. There's like the field phase versus the dual phase, and how certain attacks switch you between the phases, and how that limits like the maximum combo damage somebody can do on you before they knock you out.
It's a little crazy.
Yeah, but it looks like there's a lot of people really seem to like it. So I don't know. It's designed by the producers, the same one from Tekken. Well, it feels pretty different from Tekken.
Is that Harada?
I don't remember the guy's name. Let me see.
I think the whip is this long in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. That's crazy.
Yeah, Harada.
I can't believe I got that. 'Cause I didn't pay attention to that guy much. No! Wall chicken? Where's my wall chicken? Hey!
Oh.
Nobody's done stairs like this ever since. Thank you. Oh my god! Oh, come on. You're so cheap. Get away from me. Oh, not these guys. Okay.
I have never played the original Castle. Well, any Castlevania really. Do you have a favorite?
I've only played like the GBA one a little bit, like pretty far into it. Then I beat the DS one, and that was pretty cool.
Oh wait. I did play one of the DS ones.
Oh come on, Brad.
I played one of the DS ones. There was more than one on the DS, right?
Yeah. Yes, at least 2.
Do you have a favorite? or a favorite generation, like the NES versus Super NES versus DS.
I'm liking this NES one enough, but I think that the DS one, was it Dawn of Sorrow DS? I like that one. I didn't like Symphony of the Night.
That's the most famous one, right? That's the PlayStation one.
Yeah, supposedly. Oh no! Oh come on!
Well, that's when I played Dawn of Sorrow on the DS, and I completed the game, so I definitely enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Back then I wasn't really analyzing it and breaking it down or anything like that. I was just playing it, but I definitely had a good time with it because there's a lot of other games on the DS that I didn't 100%. So.
You 100%ed it?
Well, maybe not 100%, but I put in a lot of time into it.
Yeah, I was collecting those souls for a bit. How am I supposed to get around this guy? You jerk. Oh my gosh, that range.
Yeah, he's really good. Is this a boss?
It seems that way.
Oh.
Get stabbed in the knees, sucker. Get stabbed. Oh! What? Why isn't he dying? Okay. Jeez.
He's taking damage.
He just like walks you in the right corner. I'm not sure how to get around that. Maybe I could cleanly jump over him. He seemed pretty tall. And by he, I mean bucket of bones. Oh, I'm controlling. Oh, cool. I get to pick where I want to go? Oh.
Reminds me of those maps in the old arcade beat 'em ups.
Yeah, I don't know how much you heard. I guess I have my mic muted. About that article about a genius way of approaching problem solving.
Oh, the general way of approaching problem solving?
Yeah, from a math genius, basically.
I clicked the link, but I haven't read it yet.
I was just explaining what... Ah! Wow. Cool.
Is it a good article? Did you like it?
Yeah, it was short, pretty good. I just related all the different points and paragraphs to things I've either noticed in games criticism or incorporated into Enlighten in one way or another. So, that's a pretty cool...
That's it. I'm going to go back and watch the beginning of this stream so I can catch that. But the other thing is, watching your streams, I understand what you were trying to do with Enlighten a lot better now.
Yeah, maybe just takes me explaining everything so somebody can tell me which parts of that explanation were actually important. Yeah, take your time and do what you need to do. You can actually watch this stream. Ah, come on!
Was that link on everything else under design?
It's under the Enlighten channel.
Oh, it was under Enlighten channel, okay. You quoted a whole bunch of the article.
Yeah, those are the coolest paragraphs, I thought. And then I was like, I'm quoting the whole article. Almost.
That's how good it is. Remember the book that I told you about, Mastery? I don't know if you ever read it. I'm pretty sure I told you about it when I was in Austin. It's a book about mastery, and it goes into the backgrounds of a lot of different masters in different fields and areas. But just recently, I read an article on Gama Sutra where somebody recommended a book published by the same author. And it's called Perennial. Let me see look up the link again. Perennial Seller. And it's a totally different kind of book because this one's more about marketing and stuff like that. But I think you might find it interesting. The guy's mastery book was really good, especially since part of the things he struggled with Enlighten was on the how to make it into a product that can continue, find funding for it. I should just link this Gamma Sutra article because one of the better articles on Gamma Sutras for like indie games business kind of advice. I thought. Would that go under everything else? It's not really design.
You can just pop it into the Enlighten channel.
I'll put it in like. Oops, I linked to the comments on accident. The article.
Oh wow, that's a platform? I thought that would hurt me, but I should have known.
But
they really tried to do some crazy stuff with this game. These visuals are a little cluttered.
Oh wow, it's pretty impressive for an NES game.
Yeah.
What they were able to pull off. Technically, they obviously had some really good programmers. They really knew how to like push it to a whole nother level.
It's so crazy how smart you have to be to make this.
Yeah, with all the constraints they had, yeah. Nuts.
Quit loading in.
But I haven't read the book yet, but I remember reading one of the Amazon reviews for it, and somebody summarized the book, and a lot of what they said kind of reminded me of the way you approach things, about breaking things down, polish, all the small details. And in the article, the indie developer who's giving some advice for indies, he's talking about making games that last and can become perennials. Not easy to do.
Yeah. Some of the conclusions that I came to towards the end of the Enlighten project is that it was just never designed to be that kind of a game. To be like appealing just from first blush and popular and on mobile or whatever. Like it just didn't happen. Get away from me. Golly.
Well, I mean, most people who play games, they're looking for to be entertained.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they claim that they're serious about it, they're not really that serious about it. And then you make a game that demands a lot from people, and then they have to be really motivated to want to reach mastery. Even if they tell, right, Gritcher, that they want to reach enlightenment, how serious are they really about it? So it's like a really hard sell, especially when it's in the same category side by side games that their only goal is to entertain.
Mm-hmm.
But did you ever think about trying to? I mean, we talked about this a little bit. You know, if you push it less as a game and more as like one of those websites that they use games as a method of like keeping your brain young.
Yeah. Lumosity, brilliant.
Lumosity. Because that would put people in the right frame of mind. Because it's more like enlightenment is more like your sensei who's trying to teach you how to be, you know, a better thinker and a better learner. But instead, most gamers are going to see, oh, why do I want to play this puzzle game when I could be playing, you know, Tetris or whatever. Even though you did a lot to try to highlight what the game was about, but it's just so removed from what they're used to that it's a hard sell. I mean, imagine if it was on a store, even if Apple featured it. Hopefully, with just sheer volume, the people who downloaded it would find out what it's about. But people would look at it. So I think a lot of people would just miss. It would just fly over their head. The people on your Discord, they talk to you, they read your stuff, they know more where you're coming from, so they're kind of primed for it. And even then, it was challenging. Bit off a very difficult problem.
Yeah, the most interesting part is trying to figure out what works, not what would be popular. Because there'd be no point in doing any of that junk if the system just doesn't work. So it's like a long process.
Yeah. Will there ever be an Enlightened 2? You know, maybe you revisit this problem in the future when you have maybe better means, or you have a new idea how to approach it, and you make something similar, another piece of software that is trying to teach people.
I mean, who knows? I just fell down a hole. Let's just reload that. Yep. I gotta do some polishing up of the project and then just move on. And yep, let's just reload. These enemies are weird.
Are you using the same website you used for the Tetris 2?
Same website I used for Tetris what? Oh yeah. It's this weird website.
Oh, did you see that in the Nintendo's indie report? They had the latest one. They were showing a bunch of indie games, and there was one that was a little bit like Wario's Woods, where you had a character within the well, and you were moving around and manipulating the pieces.
I didn't see that.
Yep.
What's it called?
Wario won't? No. It has nothing to do with Wario. It's
Thank you, Medusa. Frick. Oh my gosh.
And I thought, you should talk to me about Dr. Mario. It's been a long time since I played it, but watching you play Jelly Bomber, I think it's been a long time since I was really into it, because once I switched over to Wario's Woods, I stopped playing Dr. Mario because I felt Wario's Woods was just a lot better. I enjoyed it a lot more. I'm not sure it's a better game, but I definitely enjoyed it more. Even though I loved, up till then, Dr. Mario was my thing. I didn't like Tetris. I didn't like playing Tetris that much, and I've never been very good at it. But with with Dr. Mario, I remember one of the things that I always do when I was playing it is I've always have in my mind, how there's not that many pill combinations, and since the pills are simpler, they're just 2 pieces, 2 different colors. I would always keep producing in my mind, if I get this pill color combination, where does it need to go? So I'm always, so that when a pill comes out, if I don't have time, if something hasn't changed, I'll always have sort of like a default place where it's going to go, and that minimizes the sort of amount of garbage that you make. And the areas where you're not focused on, those are nicer and easier to clear. Or even better, you can do chains on them if you're playing, because I normally play the versus mode, and they can use those chains to make things more difficult for your opponent. But just with Dr. Mario, I felt like you need to develop some sort of these clear strategies to deal with that kind of problems. And once you do that, then the game doesn't feel so overwhelming. You have more time, and you have more time to set up chains, and you have more time to think. And I know me and my wife would always play versus each other, and I always tried to sort of switch my basic strategy and adapt as things change, and it gets better. But a lot of people that I play with, for whatever reason, for me and my wife, it really clicked. But then a lot of my other gaming buddies, they all had a hard time. Whereas with Tetris, it feels like, I might not be that good at Tetris, but I feel like most people could get to they can reach a certain level of competency a lot faster than Dr. Mario.
Man, I'm dodging these Medusa heads, and then I stop dodging. Let's just save it. Oops.
And Wario's Woods took even longer. We had to go through the tutorial, and for the first hour or 2, nobody liked the game, but I kept pushing people to keep playing it.
Yeah, you gotta get past that barrier in Wario's Woods.
Because it's like Dr. Mario, but it's more complicated. In Dr. Mario, you only have those pills, those viruses. You just match them, they're gone. In Wario's Woods, the layout, the pit is pre-filled also, but it's pre-filled in different patterns. Different monsters have different conditions as to clearing them. Some can only be cleared diagonally. Some have to be cleared multiple times. It's like Dr. Mario, but with more rules. And And the main advantage is that the Toad character is more powerful in terms of what he can do, so he can go in there and fix things up more easily than Dr. Mario. It's easier to put yourself in a corner if you don't know what you're doing.
Oops, no.
Have you ever gotten good at Wario's Woods?
No, not good. I'm dying.
Yeah. And then Wario's Woods also has the ceiling coming down on you. So, yeah, it's filling up, plus it's coming down. Getting squashed. It's a lot more high ten. It's really hard to get into.
Yeah, there's this like weird thing with the Wario's Woods that's kind of hard to for me to deal with, but there's something about diagonals and like not knowing what's going to be swapped that kind of bugs me a lot in a lot of games.
One thing I did that made me a lot better at Wario's Woods is there's two buttons. One button, instead of rotate left and rotate right like in Dr. Mario, one button picks up a single bomb or creature, and the other button picks up a whole stack. And if you just force yourself to play with only one of the two buttons, so play the play a whole match only using the button that picks up a single creature, no matter what, and then play a whole match using only the button that lets you pick up a whole stack. You need to do that like multiple times until your brain starts making a clear distinction about what the buttons do and where to use it. It makes it a lot easier, but you have to do some really deliberate practice for you to crack the Wario's Woods sort of barrier. In a way, Wario's Woods would need an enlightenment. You need like to build the whole enlightenment about it. I think that's part of why the game wasn't so successful financially. It's a lot harder to get into. You need like training tools and tools to help you. Because I would have liked enlightened tools for Wario's Woods. Because in my mind, back when I used to play it a lot, it's been such a long time, I would create names for my different strategy. I called this the 4-win strategy and blah blah and all these patterns, but I didn't write it down, so I've forgotten all that stuff. But as we got better and better, that's what we're doing. Kind of little, you start seeing these little patterns. It's funny how everything is so similar.
Yeah, it seems that I kind of don't even want to play games without tools anymore. It just seems kind of like a waste. A big old like, I've done it the bad way already all my life.
Well.
Oh, you jerk. Oh, wow. Wow, your knife absorbs mine? You piece of trash. This guy's gonna try to kill me. Get off that.
Okay.
It's interesting. I can see the... I did not do that correctly.
The game is called Treasure Stack.
Oh, the new one?
Yeah, I'll link to it under... where should I put it? Everything else?
Yeah.
I'll put it there.
Oh. There's nothing you can do once you get down this hole, I imagine.
It's like a much simpler Wario's Woods. In a way. Your character moves like an actual platform, whereas Wario's Woods kind of moves in a in a weird way. He moves cell grid by cell grid, where this has like the fine control of a regular platformer. And it looks like the matching rules are much simpler, but it's still similar.
There's no way to get out of this if he traps me in a corner. But when you make him jump, you can get out. Ah, I was close. He just kind of threw that in midair.
Oh.
I wonder if I have enough time to react for him to move backwards before I have to jump out of that hole. Sometimes some of these situations look pretty freaking tight.
Are you using some sort of hotkey to reset the game?
Yeah, I remapped my controls so I can easily load and experiment.
Okay. Okay, I was saying, what is going on here?
Well, that guy, man, he's...
It's a very handy feature when you want to experience the game before you completely master it. Ooh.
Man, you can pretty much kill him just by trading the hits, which I guess that's why keeping your health is pretty cool. Right here, do I have enough time to... Nah, maybe... I think some of these are kind of random, whether you'll get out of it or not.
Whether the moves will trade or...
If he gets you in the corner, like in this opening part on the right side, he can walk into the corner and then immediately jump away. And if you try to jump over him, you get hit. So, like, if you anticipate it, you could get hit. And if you... I don't think he gives you enough time to react if he's going to jump towards you. I'm going to keep testing it. Ouch. Okay. And maybe if I try to jump too early, maybe that'll trigger his left and right. Man, this guy's a jerk. Like, if I freak out? No? Okay. Not good. Does this whip have tip damage? See if you can keep track of the damage. Oh.
Yeah.
Does it have tip damage?
It does damage when you hit it with the tip.
Is that what you mean? Is it more?
Is it more? No, I don't think so. Because I saw it when you hit it with just the basic tip, and it just did one tick. It probably does more damage if you hit it with more of the whip.
There's a tip.
That was two.
So I think it's like 1.5 each. That's why the second hit always seems to do more. No, that's 2 and 2. Maybe it's an odd fraction. I should be going to bed. I'm playing Castlevania.
Yeah, sometimes you do 1 and sometimes you do 2. I can't really tell why. And before he wakes up, you don't do any damage if you hit him.
Get off the ceiling.
Do you have unlimited knives?
No, the knives and all the extra weapons consume the hearts that you collect from.
Okay, I see.
From the candles and candelabras. I'm gonna call this other one.
Well, you're doing a good job of not getting hit.
Ugly boss.
Slowly whittling.
I'm gonna call this.
You got.
Well, that boss was pretty dynamic. He could chase you in different ways and go into cracks and jump on the ceiling and...
Yeah, a lot of variety. Yeah, I just had this random idea. What if there was an Enlightened that was not specific to any game? It was like note-taking for gamers. Or learning tools for... Like, Discord is chat for gamers. Before Discord, I didn't know we needed our own special chat program just for gamers. But if you had like a companion program that you could use to help organize your notes for all your games. You know what I mean?
Greg was working on a web-based program that was doing that. I experimented with it a little bit. I was putting Splatoon notes in it. But yeah, like whether it's a piece of software that can like fit around other experiences, all these crazy questions. And I just want to know if it works.
But maybe it's better as a methodology instead of a specific piece of software.
I mean, those.
Do you remember? Have you remembered the book Getting Things Done? It was really popular for a while.
I remember that title. Yeah.
Yeah. It was some guy came up with his own like methodology for being organized and getting things done, and then it led to a whole like industry of getting things done apps, but the original getting things done is just, you didn't need special software to do it. But I could see Enlighten working in a similar way. You have a book explaining the methodology, and then you could make software that exemplifies that methodology, but the concepts are independent of Enlightenment, the game itself.
Yeah, I'm waiting for a few more people to become masters so I can really test some of the stuff. That's really neat.
Has anybody reached master besides you yet?
Not really.
Who's the closest?
My friend Travis, I think, got pretty close in an old version where it may have been a little easier or a little cheesier, if you will. And I took out some of that cheese. That was close.
How long do you estimate it would take somebody to reach mastery in the current version?
I can't.
Like nobody has.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't have You don't even have a ballpark, an idea, like a gut feeling for how long it might take.
That's the whole thing. No, I don't.
It's too hard.
I played it
that's tough.
while developing it way too much to even use it in my experience.
Right. The curse of knowledge.
And then maybe the thing is, like, it does take hundreds of hours, 1,000 hours. I don't think I played 1,000, but that's kind of crazy. Like, what if there are no substitutes?
Yeah. Well, plus you made the game so that your experience will always be different than anybody else's.
People who have the tools from the beginning. Maybe part of the way you reach master is making your own tools.
Yeah.
And
isn't that how the old masters used to do it? You have to make your own tools. Become from master to apprentice to a master.
I don't know why I'm backtracking in this game.
Well, I know I haven't played very much. I just tried it one time. Or a few times. But it's just like... Yeah. I feel bad about it sometimes, but it's like you have all these other things you have to do, and you have to decide whether or not you want to make the commitment to do it.
I died. Well, that should be it for tonight. For the stream, at least. I'm going to kill this thing. And I'll see you guys next time.